chant special mantra before reading the book. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we will read Bhagavad Gita as it is, with translation and purpose of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And today we'll chapter number 13, Nature and Enjoyer and Consciousness. Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. And text number 4, I hope I'm right. 4, yes, good. Sanskrit. Tad kshetrayat shayadrim cha yadvikariyat ashchayat sachayat prabhavascha tat samasena meshinu. Tad kshetram yachayadrik cha tat yadvikariyat aschet sachayat prabhavascha Tad samasena meshinu. Tad kshetam yachayadrikcha yadvikariyat ashchayat sachayat prabhavascha tad samasena meshinu. Translation of this verse. Now, please hear my brave description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influence are. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. The Lord is describing the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities in their constitutional positions. One has to know how this body is constituted. The materials of this, of which this body is made, and whose control this body is working, how the changes are taking place, where from the changes are coming, what the causes are, what the reasons are, what the ultimate goal of the individual soul is, and what the actual form of the individual soul is. One should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the supersoul, where different influences, where potentials, etc. One just has to understand this Bhagavad Gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all this will be clarified. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every body to be one with the individual soul, the jiva. This is something like equating the potent and the impotent. End of commentary. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Amagyanati miranasya gyananjana shalaka chakshurun viditamina tasmai shri gurave namaham mukam karati vachalam pangum langate girim yatkripatamaham vande shri guru jinataranam. Namo Vishnu Pada Krishna Pashta Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nijinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. One time more translation. Now please hear my brave description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influence are. Okay, it's very interesting verse. It is 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the most philosophical chapter. You know the structure of Bhagavad Gita in general. We have 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And first 6 chapters together is calling Karma Yoga. It is a description of reincarnation and different types of activities in this material world. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga and Krishna consciousness, Ashtanga Yoga. All together is calling Karma Yoga. Second 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita named Bhakti Yoga. It is description of Supreme Personality of Godhead and His presence in this material universe, and how to reach ultimate goal of human life, supreme planets of Supreme Personality of Godhead, spiritual planets of Supreme Personality of Godhead, and devotional service in the end, universal form, 11th chapter, and 12th chapter is devotional service. And after then, third part of Bhagavad Gita, 6 chapters from 13th till 18th. It names Jnana Yoga, knowledge, different gunas, different idea, material nature, spiritual soul, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and some and other things. Different types of religions and renunciation, art of renunciation, in perfection of renunciation in the 18th chapter. It is Jnana Yoga. And this is 13th chapter is part of Jnana Yoga, piece of Bhagavad Gita. And by this reason, a lot of jnana, theoretical knowledge, a lot of in this 13th chapter. But there is no some points of Krishna. He said in this verse, I will show you this knowledge. It is like introduction. By this reason, we can discuss in general this chapter, topic of this chapter. What is this topic? Nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. According to Madhvacharya, who is Madhvacharya? Madhvacharya is our previous acharya, our parampara or disciplic succession names Brahma, Gaudiya, Madhava Sampradaya. Madhava is our Param Guru or previous acharya, Madhava. And he gave explanation of Bhagavad Gita according to this title of this chapter. There are 3 topics, 3 realities in our life. First, Ishvara, Supreme Personality of Godhead or Absolute Truth. Second, Jivas, we are. And third is material nature. Only 3. Absolute Truth, our spiritual soul, and material nature. Relationships between material nature and Absolute Truth, Supreme Personality of Godhead, names Kala, time. Relationships between material nature and Jiva, transcendental soul, is karma. And relationships between Absolute Truth and living entities, Jiva, a soul, spiritual soul, names yoga. And this is 6 realities and no more. Absolute Truth, material nature, spiritual soul. Time, yoga, karma. It is, and by these six realities or points, we can, by combination of these six things, we can explain all things. It is the idea of this chapter. Title. Nature, it is material nature. Enjoyer, it is Supreme Personality of Godhead. And consciousness, it is spiritual soul. Yes, and it's very, very easy. And after then, possible to, I gave a lot of introduction or presentations, philosophy of our Brahma Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya in colleges and universities and institutes for students. And I usually use these three topics. And for beginning, I start to explain according to the teaching of Krishna. First topic of Krishna, chapter number 2, text from 10 till 30. Spiritual, eternal, spiritual soul and reincarnation. And usually need to start for students with an explanation of Jiva, living entity, because we are Jivas. Need to speak about audience in the beginning. It's natural. And focus attention to this topic. For example, I can give example. It's a very popular example. It was in the beginning, okay, I forgot exactly, in 20th centuries, in USA, in New York, some people built new, very high building, maybe 100 floors. But lift was very slow. Some minutes go to up level. And a lot of Krishna, bad feedbacks about this lift, because too slow. People said, we are losing the time. Change lift. Change to more fast. But it takes money and time. No money, no time. And manager organized a very interesting solution. Put extra big mirror to one wall. And immediately all bad negative feedbacks stopped. Why? Because people start to see themselves in mirror. It is the best time for any conditioned soul. I can see my reflection in mirror. And they forgot it. Forgot about time. Yes, it is reality. By this reason, Krishna started with explanation of spiritual soul, because Arjuna was a little bit in shock situation. His consciousness was not so clean in that moment. And Krishna started with explanation of soul. And I follow Krishna. Why not? Yes, and it is successful. Need to start free absolute truth, material nature, and spiritual soul. I am starting like Krishna with spiritual soul. And said about eternal position, physical body, subtle body, and spiritual soul. Spiritual soul is eternal. No death. But body, subtle, physical body is temporary, very temporary. Not longer than 100 years now. In previous yugas, maybe 1,000 years, maybe 10,000 years. But now, not longer than usually, like 100 years. And this material body, like rope, or like car, or like house, we can change house, change rope, change car, without problems. The same situation in reincarnation. Our body constantly changing. 5 years old, small body, 10 years old, first classes of school, 15 years old, people usually started to have, teenagers started to have sexual desire in 20 years, 25, 30. We can remember our situation in ourself in these ages. 5 years kindergarten, 10 first years in school, 18, 15 it is some last years in school, 20 is university or institute age, etc., etc., etc. Our bodies are changing one to another. And consciousness changed our desires and our dreams, or our consciousness is changing. But we can remember ourselves in kindergarten, in school, in university, etc., etc. No changing. One part of us did not change. And what is the past? And what is this part? It is spiritual soul. Consciousness is changing, physical body is changing, but spiritual soul has no changing. By 5 minutes in explanation, any person can have real experience. I am spiritual soul. Very good explanation of Krishna, brilliant. I used in preaching in universities, brilliant result. And after then, what about next time, or next life? We have a big changing of physical body. Sometimes type of body, maybe a human being, after then dog, for example. But the consciousness, our consciousness, without changing. It is explanation of Bhagavad Gita. Our meditation of our ideas in our mind in the moment of the death will continue in next life. It means our function of our consciousness is not, have no breaking point. Constant, like this. By this reason, Srila Prabhupada explained, we need to see to the spirit, to the living entity, not according this life body, but according next life body, because it is depends of consciousness. Consciousness is more important than physical body. At first explanation about spiritual soul and reincarnation, subtle and physical body. Very interesting question was, one our spiritual master is called Guru, Sankarshana Maharaj. He preached a lot of in universities for students, very active in this. I don't know here or not. Okay, yes, and he was in Helsinki, in Finland, in university, and he explained these three reality: spiritual soul, eternal spiritual soul, and consciousness, subtle body, and physical body. And question was from one student, very intelligent: if why our gross body, which we can see and touch, for us less reality than consciousness? If I have some problems with physical body, is not big problems, but if somebody reject my opinion, it is a question of consciousness. Why I'm unhappy at all? Why? For us, subtle body is more important than physical. It was a question from student. Interesting, yes? And the answer of Maharaj was very interesting too. Because this material body is only for this life. And you use this material body only 20 years maybe. But your consciousness, together with you, hundreds and thousands of years and lives. And you have very deep attachment to your consciousness. It was answer. Oh, yeah, answer to this question. Yes, first is spiritual soul. Second, absolute truth. 3 levels of understanding: Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Brahman is shining, spiritual shining, with quality of sat, internal, purity and internal. No sin is sinful. Okay, purity and eternity. And second step of understanding of absolute truth is Paramatma. Sat and Chit. Chit means knowledge. Paramatma can give for us information how many trees in forest nearby, how many pieces of grass near this temple, etc., etc. In what day Shakespeare or Bach, musician, was born. Maybe Friday or Tuesday. Paramatma knows all things. From our time, from future, and from previous time. It is contact with Paramatma. Radhanath Goswami, one of the spiritual masters of our movement, the Prabhupada disciple, Sannyasi GBC, initiated spiritual master, he said in his lecture, we can accept eternity and knowledge from Paramatma, but no relationship, no happiness. You know about all things, but happiness is absent. Happiness, it is Ananda, Sat Chit, Ananda, only by the contact from Krishna. Second or third level of understanding of absolute truth. And Vyasadeva in his Vedanta Sutra said, Anandamaya Bhya said, Anandamaya, we need to reach Anandamaya, happiness. By this reason, need to be a devotee of Krishna. It is explanation of absolute truth and explanation of material nature. 14 levels of material planets. 3 material gunas. Sattva, Raja, Tama. Creation, it is Rajagun. Destruction, it is Tamagun. And maintaining, it is Sattvagun. And no force. Creation, maintaining, destruction. Not 2, not 4, 3. And 8 material elements. Earth, water, fire, air, and ether, or sky. It is gross material elements, and 3 subtle. Mind, intelligence, and false ego. It is material nature. 3 gunas, 8 elements, 14 spiritual material planets with 8,400,000 of types of material bodies, living entities, different living entities. It's very interesting for students, very interesting. And after the Kala, absolute truth and material nature, interesting, Kala. 2 aspects, 3 aspects. First, destroying all things. Time will destroy all things, will destroy. And second, there is nature sequence of realities. Spring, summer, autumn, winter, next. The same cycle in day, morning, day, evening, night. The same. Satya Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, Kali Yuga. Bigger and bigger, 1 day, 1 year, 1 Mahakalpa. And third idea, first, time will destroy all things. Second, time has sequences. This sequence. And third, time have circle form, like this. Next year will summer, but little bit different from previous summer. And next will summer, but another summer, like this. The same, but not the same. Not circle. It's like this. It is time. Karma. Material nature, spiritual soul. Karma. If we have no spiritual knowledge and spiritual force, we are slaves of material nature. And this karma, from the time of our birth, possible to understand by astrology, for example, or some another thing, numerology, I don't know. There is a real material karma which start to manifest in our moment of our birth. And according to this karma, we will have some number of days in our life, some number of volume of money in our life, health, education, and so, etc., etc., etc. But Srila Prabhupada said, at least one time, very easy to change karma if you start to serve Supreme Personality of Godhead. We need to change our consciousness from material nature to absolute truth, yoga. If we start to practice yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga, 4 types. It is according to description of Bhagavad Gita. We will change our karma at all. In ideal situation, 0 karma. Pure devotee of Krishna has no karma. Srila Prabhupada said, regular devotee of our movement has only 30% of karma in horoscope. And very difficult to understand what part of horoscope is important and what type of not important. How some of my friends, astrologers, tested Vaishnavas before saying something, do consultation about this, about that, what about this, what about that, and try to understand what part of horoscope are insignificant, because by practice of Bhakti Yoga, it is difficult to understand. Only 30% of karma, usually regular devotee, not absolutely pure devotee, regular devotee. It is power of Bhakti Yoga. It is explanation of Bhagavad Gita in a very short way and possible, and I did it a lot of times in university. Why not? And very good success. It is interesting. It is practical. Bhagavad Gita is very interesting. Sometimes some of my friends said, no, for materialistic people, Bhagavad Gita is not interesting book. My experience is opposite. Interesting if we follow the instructions of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita and have structure, good structure, absolute truth, spiritual soul, material nature, and have clear understanding. If we have clear understanding, we can explain. It is good. Srila Prabhupada started to preach in 1965 in institute. First lecture of Srila Prabhupada was in institute between Butler, Pennsylvania and New York. He visited one professor and gave some lectures in institute. Srila Prabhupada personally checked, because some his god brother who preached in England in 30s of previous century said to Prabhupada, no interest. We are preached, and finally 3-5 people had interest. Srila Prabhupada tried to check, but no, he started to preach to student audience, according to the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, and high level of interests. A lot of questions in the end, and only starting of next lesson stopped these questions. Srila Prabhupada said, no, Western people have interest in Vedic knowledge. Yes, if we follow of Prabhupada and Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, we will have a lot of new volunteers, because Bhagavad Gita is very, very interesting book. But you need to know. At least something I said about this. Yes, and this is the title of this chapter. Spiritual soul, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and material nature. Yeah, it's very good. And need to know a lot of things. For example, topic of spiritual soul is not understandable very fast for conditioned souls. And they will say, I cannot understand, what is it? What is it, spiritual soul? What is it, consciousness? What is it? Please explain. And Srila Prabhupada usually gave, and in parts of Bhagavad Gita, he gave very good example. Spiritual soul is like candle or lamp. And shining of this candle of lamp is consciousness, which is explanation. We need to explain, because after our preaching, our audience will have a lot of questions, and we need to explain all things. Presentation may be short, 15-20 minutes. For example, now I use 30 minutes like this, not longer. But after, a lot of questions. And we explain and explain and explain. It is qualification of preacher to give answer to all questions. Presentation may be not so deep or not so long, not so difficult, but a lot of questions. We need to know philosophy and how to apply in practice. One time, for example, I was in one Namahata in Estonia. It's a country nearby Finland. And one devotee, he moved me to bus station by car. He asked me, I tried to understand, I had seminar for Vaishnava Sampradayas, and I tried to understand the difference between Sampradayas, and he started to ask me something about this. And finally, after his very long question, I said, please understand one thing. This is for Sampradayas, for you, quite theoretical things. But reality need to follow Prabhupada. Okay, thank you. Because a lot of information, 3 hours seminar, I have a lot of questions how to understand. Don't worry, don't worry. Be happy in Krishna consciousness. For you, it is only philosophy. It is only theory for you. Because you are a follower of Srila Prabhupada. Relax and enjoy your treatment, your Krishna tour through spiritual world, like this. We need to organize for people. We need to be like crew in flight. Said, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. Please now act like this. Wake up, go to bathroom, now go to Mangala Arati, now Japa, and we need to help people. Organize all things, all spiritual way. Back to Godhead. Back to Godhead. It is ISKCON service for all planets and for another planets too. And we need to preach, very openly preach Krishna consciousness. How? 3 main activities which Lord Chaitanya acted every day. Kirtan, lecture and prasadam. Spiritual, singing of spiritual names, of holy names, discussion of holy books, Srimad Bhagavatam for example, and holy food. We need to organize inside of our centers and temples, kirtan, lecture and prasadam, and after then, preaching is very easy. To go outside with kirtan, with lecture and with prasadam. It is preaching. Start here and spread. No problem, very easy. It is natural for us here, spread this. Go to some place and sing kirtan, it will harinam. And we can discuss Bhagavad Gita here or in some hall or in another place. Prabhupada, very regular, gave lectures in airport, in any place. Immediately some kirtan, after the lecture and prasadam distribution. It is Krishna consciousness. Very easy. And very practical. And preaching is a foundation of our movement. It is explanation of Srila Prabhupada. Preaching is foundation. Reality, preaching. Yes, very easy. Kirtan, lecture and prasad, Guru Parampara and Prabhupada. Finish. Short slogan. Very easy. And this life is happy, and this life is last life in this material world. It's very easy. Okay, very brilliant chapter. We discussed in general Bhagavad Gita and in general this chapter, and discussed how to preach. No problem, please. If you will follow Prabhupada and Krishna and have some knowledge and possibility to explain to another person, please start immediately. Don't worry, Krishna will help. Okay, maybe you have some questions, comments, yes? Thank you, Prabhu.
Actually, I have to give a class tomorrow in a preaching program, so now I know what to talk about.
Yes, Bhagavad Gita.
I was thinking today, what should I say tomorrow?
Yes, no problem.
But my question is, you said Ishvara, I mean Supreme Personality of Godhead, and soul is connected by yoga, and material nature and Ishvara by time, color, and karma is material nature and Jiva. And so how is like the relationship between material nature and Jiva? Is it like only karma, action, reaction, or?
Yes. If we have contact with karma, with material nature, we will have karma. But idea is, it is question for Brahman test for initiation. We need avoid any contact with material world. We need to offer all things for Krishna and take only prasadam, and food and all things. At Karashi, Dashnasi, Juhashi, Dadasi, at all things, all your activities, all your austerities, all your... Please offer me. Please. We need to organize our life without contact with material nature. If we have contact, immediately need to offer. Or in the end of the day, maybe, not immediately. And in this situation, as explained our first GBC, all our life will prasadam. And we need to explain this art to any our member of our movement. Because contact with material nature means unhappiness, distress, and destroying. Don't need to, don't touch it. No, only prasadam, it is an idea. I need to explain for people. Yes, karma. And if we change our consciousness from material nature to absolute truth, our karma will change to yoga. Yoga means happiness. Yes, that is our idea. Srila Prabhupada said, don't change your life, put Krishna inside. Change karma to yoga. Like this.
And in the beginning you said the 3 yogas in Bhagavad Gita, and the first 6 chapters is Karma Yoga, and you said also Hatha Ashtanga Yoga. It is also in these first 6 chapters?
Yeah.
So first 6 is Karma Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga.
Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga and Krishna consciousness, and Ashtanga Yoga. Yes.
So 6 chapters.
Ashtanga Yoga, 6th chapter, yes.
And like we say Karma Yoga, but we also have chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge. And so why is it, I mean, of course we have 2 chapters about Karma Yoga, but then chapter 2 is also, he speaks about lots of Jnana actually, about the soul. So why is he called Karma Yoga and the last chapter is Jnana Yoga? Is there some explanation?
Karma Yoga means number 3 and number 5, 2 Karma Yogas. In number 3, chapter number 3, Karma Yoga means our desires is more important for us than desires of Krishna. It is Sakama Karma Yoga. And 5th chapter, Karma Yoga in Krishna consciousness. Our desire of Krishna is more significant for us than my own desire. It is more high level. It is Karma Yoga in Krishna consciousness. Chapter number 4, Transcendental Knowledge. Krishna said, if somebody understands my spiritual appearance and disappearance and spiritual nature of my body and activities, by this knowledge, this person will liberate it. It is very easy. It's very easy. And beginning, 2nd chapter, yes, it is reincarnation. It's some Jnana Yoga, but it's for beginning. It is, yes, in general, all things. And after then, 1, 2, 3, 4 yogas. It is structure of Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the opportunity. My question is this, you said about avoiding the contact with the material nature. In what ways we can avoid this contact with the material nature? And if you say like, there is also something like the materialistic nature is super strong and it influences as easily as possible. And also it is part of the creation. How do we get detached from this material nature? And it's like a test. Karma is giving a test and in every part of our life. Does that mean that we need to avoid that test? And even when Arjuna was asking Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita to avoid his test and to go to the forest and do his meditation, Krishna advised Arjuna, you need to follow the karma yoga of your duty, which is to fight the people even though you are attached to them through guru, your relatives, your grandfather, whatever it is. Even though you are attached to that, you have to fight against them. In the same way, we have to fight against the materialistic test, or we have to completely avoid, ignore, and get into the spiritual world. What is your best advice? Hare Krishna.
Good question. A lot of things we can say. I have only 4 minutes. I have next meeting in 8 o'clock. Okay. In Srimad Bhagavatam and in puppets of Prabhupada, of course, there is 2 explanations of our activities. First is if material desires or material reality is like disease, problems with health, we can use 2 types of medicine. First, we can correct health by opposite thing. For example, if too cold outside, we can take hot drink or sauna or fire like this. You understand? Opposite. If we put some water to the floor, we can use dry something, a piece of dry thing, and we destroy it. Dry thing and water, it is destroy. And fire and cold, destroy, like this. And it is very simple, even understandable for animals, because it is very easy. If a lot of problems, it's too hot in summer, even horses go to the water. It is understandable for animals. But it produced Krishna. Karmic, it is difficult in practice because you need to break karma. Arjuna was prince and kshatriya and householder and need to go to forest. It is need to break all things. It is not sattvic. It is not instrument of bhakti yoga. Second possibility, to correct something by something looks like. For example, you will have problems with stomach by taking very, very by some milk products, very fat milk, you will have diarrhea, for example. You can correct by yogurt, maybe with some herbals. It is changing or correction by little bit like the same. It is sattvic. And idea of bhakti yoga, if you have material desires, it is bad health. But if you use this in devotional service, put Krishna inside, for example, householder, grihastha, you will change situation from karma to yoga and will have the same your desire like medicine. You understand? It is main idea. Impersonalists use opposite correction. We devotees try to ask more high level correction by the same thing. You understand? Yeah, that's my small attempt to explain methodology of Bhagavad Gita. We need to know this because a lot of questions and need to give answer and explain. It's very easy. You are understandable, my English, sorry. Not short vocabulary. Okay.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we need to stop here. Thank you very much. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande. Srila Simadeva Bhagavan ki jai. Very interesting book. Very.